Metacognitive understanding has eluded a full scientific and mathematical explanation. Rather than an explanation, science has done a better job identifying the environments and the experiences that influence its expression. For example, in educational psychology, scientists have devised tests to identify the kinds of environment that promote metacognitive thinking. Likewise, neurobiologists have devised scientific procedures and equipment capable of identifying the general parts of the brain that are activated during certain kinds of thinking. However, a fully descriptive explanation remains forthcoming. What is most relevant to this discussion is the simple fact that individuals can subjectively investigate their thinking in ways that are scientific in form, but sort of permanently unscientific because of their subjective nature. However, this is not to say that a person cannot approach their subjective experience scientifically. A person can train themselves to look at subjective experience as data, and even devise tests for those experiences to confirm their accuracy. However, while it is the conscious training and practice in scientific thought that separates the thinking of scientists from the thinking of non-scientists, these differences appear to be only in their degree. They are like the differences we see displayed by professionals in other fields who derive their expertise not simply from a God-given talent, but through a process of nurturing their talent through hours and hours of engagement. Other than spending an extreme amount of time on it, the only real difference between scientific thinking and the problem-solving thinking of regular folk is the caliber of evidence. Because a subjective experiment can be wholly contained and evaluated internally, it is not fully considered science because true science requires a social consensus. Social consensus is necessary to be sure that mistakes were not made. It is a form of error correction that is built into the social scientific system that attempts to prevent mistakes from going unnoticed and protecting the truth against charlatans and liars. And they're out there. For example, Andrew Wakefield, a British physician, presented fraudulent research linking the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine to autism. Wakefield later was found to have manipulated the data and was involved in a money-making scheme to sell vaccine alternatives. So even though the Lancet retracted his paper and his medical license was revoked, Wakefield still became a prominent and wealthy anti-vaccination advocate and one of the chief spreaders of vaccine disinformation during the global pandemic. While the detrimental impact of purposeful manipulation is terrible, even well-intentioned scientists can simply be wrong. The problem for a subjective application of the scientific method will be its lack of raw data that can be shared with others and checked for error. However, the scientific method has this unreasonable effectiveness, and there seems to be a convergence around ideas that the steps of the scientific method are somehow deeply embedded in the processes of understanding. Perhaps the only difference between the thinking of scientists and non-scientists is this degree of error correction that they engage in. But there is a very real relationship between the scientific method and the underlying processes of human learning taking shape in the literature. Relationships between the scientific method and the fundamentals of the learning process have been an area of intense study by educational researchers, and they demonstrate that there is a common problem-solving routine that drives human problem-solving and development. We'll look a little bit more at that in the future.